Thousands of farmers in Punjab have launched a massive protest today, blocking key roads in Sangrur, Moga, Phagwara and Batala. The protest organized by the Bharatiya Kisan Union is primarily protesting against tardy paddy procurement and the penalties imposed for stubble burning. As many as 600 FIRs have been lodged in Punjab against the parali menace, and the farmers of Punjab have slammed this move. The farmers' agitation comes at a time when the state government is intensifying efforts to control the air quality index, which has been severely impacted by stubble burning. The question that comes up is, what are the solutions that need to be implemented before things go way out of hand? From farm loss to MSP to parali to paddy, how can we effectively deal with the crisis in Punjab? We'll talk about this with our guest. Joining us on the show is Dr. Jayajit Bhattacharya, President of CDEPR. Mr. Indrashekhar Singh, Agriculture Policy Analyst, also joins us on the show. Mr. Sanjay Nath Singh, President and Secretary of the General IFA. And Mr. Harinder Singh Sikka, author and activist, with us on the program as well. Last but by no means the least, Mr. Sandeep Chachra, Executive Director of ActionAid, also with us on the program. Dr. Bhattacharya, I'll begin with you. Well, you know, the pollution, the menace in North India and especially the capital city is one side of the story. Now, as a result of coping with this menace, you know, there have been penalties imposed on farmers, there have been FIRs that have been registered, and of course, there have been circulars, been put out in Punjab and Haryana where farmers have been warned that if they continue to do this, they will be penalized, which is rightly so. But there is this other side to it, which of course the farmer also wants, to bring out, which is that the compliance norms or the terms which have been imposed by the government are perhaps not farmer friendly. Where do you stand on this issue? We have seen one farmer agitation go, eerily wrong just a couple of years ago. Is this another one that's knocking on the doors of trouble?
It also brings out starkly the disproportionate use of power. In the sense that, actions were taken against the middle class in Delhi by taking away their vehicles. And, pensioners who had the last vehicle in their hand were also taken away. More than 50% of the vehicles in India, in Delhi, has been taken away, citing that as the reason for creating pollution. Not a single middle class person stood up or had any protest or displayed any form of power in a democratic society, and they faced the brunt of it. The impact on pollution was zero. Absolutely zero. There was no action taken against scooters, obviously, because that has a political implication. Now, clearly the ham-handedness in which action is being taken against farmers is not acceptable. But the problem also is that the key source of pollution clearly seems to be directly correlated with the time that the parali is being burnt. So the solution is clearly in the agricultural sector. Now, instead of solving that problem, if we are going around penalizing farmers without handholding them into the transition, that is also a big challenge. But having said that, every time that anything comes up against the farmers in North India and specifically Punjab and Haryana, they put the brunt of it against, it's almost terrorism, because they are making the local people suffer, the common people suffer, which is what the definition of terrorism is, that you make the civilians suffer in order to change a policy initiative. That is the UN definition of terrorism, and that is not acceptable. There is let me take the example of Sonipat. There are multiple colleges there, big universities there. Now the children cannot go from their homes in Delhi and Haryana and Gurgaon and so on to Sonipat because of the protests being held. This is quite unfair. This is not the way to do protests. Also, these agricultural activist unions, if they really want to help the farmers, they should stand next to the farmers and help them solve the parali problem rather than pointing fingers to the government. Now, also, as I mentioned, there is an issue with the government also, with both the issue of procurement being tardy. It's been almost a month and very little procurement has happened. That is a big issue. Along with it, if you are putting in penalization and FIRs, making it a criminal offense, that is not acceptable. That's again a disproportionate show of strength by the state onto the farmers. So you see, there is a lot of non-civil actions happening with all of the stakeholders involved. There seems to be what the farmers are doing, part of it seems to be wrong. What the state government is doing, part of it seems to be wrong. And at the brunt of it, it's common citizens living in Delhi who are facing the brunt. They're having wheezing problems. They have seen so many deaths happening because of pneumonia triggered by pollution. I see little children having breathing problems. This is quite an unacceptable situation, and I hope the farmers and the government come back to the same page and solve this issue.
Mr. Chatra, how do you look at this? I mean, what should define this, Mr. Chatra? Is this objectivity or subjectivity? What's going on over here? The farmer also has issues now, with the way this parali menace is being handled, and of course they're obviously showcasing this with a lot of angst and demonstration, and this is something that they have resorted to in the past as well. But unlike MSP, this is a concern which involves public health. Multiple agencies of the central government, of the state government, have been involved in trying to curb this menace. The Supreme Court, the apex court of this country, has in fact shown worry. The Chief Justice just said yesterday at a convention that he stopped going for a morning walk because of the pollution. This is all being pinned on the farmer. I'm not sure whether I should call it whether it's right or wrong, but there is a responsibility that the farmer also has to undertake.
No, thank you for having me, first of all. And I think, when on these debates, and we've been having these for several years on the pollution matter, and it's easy for middle classes, particularly urban middle classes and elites, to fix the blame, to criminalize the workers and the peasants. So let me begin there. And I think let me also sort of say that clearly that the reason for the protest is twofold today. And the main reason is, as you mentioned in the opening, is the tardy procurement of paddy. Now the entire paddy value chain, if you're looking at it from the time the farmer grows it to the time it gets to the FCI go down for the public distribution system, is under immense value chain stress. And that's the reason here. The Punjab government, and we know that that data is available in the public realm, had asked the centre to offtake about 20 lakh metric tons of paddy, of milled rice, because they wanted to empty the go down. So let's begin there. The go downs are all full, and therefore the millers are not accepting rice. There are other reasons, and therefore what is now happening is the fact that ultimately it leads to the farmer not being able to harvest the standing paddy crop. If I were to take figures, only 22% of the paddy crop which is there, and this has been a bumper year, 230 lakh metric tons of paddy is expected. Only 22% has been harvested and is standing there and deteriorating there. Why it's not being harvested? Because it can't get to the mandis. Why it can't get to the mandis? Because mandis are full. Why the mandis are not able to turn it on? Because the millers, Punjab has about 5,000 private millers or milling spaces. Though they are not accepting it for two concerns. One, they are not sure how long they'll have to store it because the government godowns are full. And secondly, the OTR ratio, the outturn ratio as it's called, Viniji, of what happens when you convert paddy to milled rice. This time is expected to be low because there's an entire proliferation of private hybrid varieties of paddy where the yields are much less, where, the OTR ratios are much lesser. And the millers will make losses up to average of about 350 rupees per quintal. So until they're offset, they're not accepting. Therefore, mandis are full. So there's an entire thing. And now what happens in the end? That paddy is standing. Last year, the procurement till now was about 42% of the paddy production. This year is 22%, and you can compare it. Now what happens? The paddy which is standing there will be harvested later. If at all, it will deteriorate. Farmer will suffer, and also will get very little time between the time she or he harvests the paddy and the time that the next rabi crop has to be sown, and therefore will be forced in the end to burn parali, because there's not enough time for what's called in situ treatment. So I think there's a complex range of issues, and middle classes, then I'll come to the other point, tend to sit here and blame parali burning. Let me put it in perspective. Parali burning on an average of the year, if you take, is 6 to 8% of Delhi's pollution content comes from parali burning. In these months, it's 25, 28%. But the major factor, as my previous panelist was saying, is the vehicular sort of contribution to pollution. It's well known. There's an IIT study, there's a Government of Delhi study, 38 to 40% of the pollution which is happening now and what we are talking about is on account of vehicles. So something has to be done. I don't want to say that you penalize pensioners. I don't want to say that you seize vehicles, but certainly a disincentive has to be given out for the kind of vehicular sort of proliferation that's happening. People have 4 vehicles. Why? So vehicle taxes, parking fees, hiking, public transport augmentation, these are things that need to be done first. If I were to compare industry and farmers, the same laws prevail, right? Now what happens to industry? Have the EPA or the new Jan Vishwas Act which has come about, the rules are yet to be framed still, but is it even-handedly applied? Have industries been penalized? I mean, the entire discussion here seems to be how to penalize farmers further, and naturally they are upset. But has industry been penalized?
But Mr. Chacha, it also has to do with the quantum of contribution when it comes to pollution, right? And of course, the parali burning quantum is a lot more compared to the...
No, I differ. The data differs, and I think we need to do evidence-based action rather than perspective.
Okay, but then why is Delhi so polluted during these months? You know, why not throughout the year?
Let me tell you, there's a complex factors. This is the time when, and this year in particular, because there was cold weather, heavy rains throughout in the preceding part of the year. So we are getting into a winter cold, but usually this happens. Air speeds slow down, the inversion happens, so the pollutants can't escape. But that doesn't indicate or point fingers alone to parali burning. It needs to be addressed. But this is only 25% of the pollutants even now, or 30% at the most. Which is the bigger components? The vehicles. Which is the bigger components? The dust pollutions. Which is the bigger component in Delhi? The waste, open waste burning. Which is the other bigger component in Delhi? The industrial pollution. So I think we need to take action on all fronts, Niji. This is how I would like to look at it.
Okay, all right. Point taken, Mr. Chacha. Point taken. Mr. Sikka, how would you approach the situation? Mr. Chacha is of the opinion that this is obviously not to be pinned entirely on the farmer.
You see, why is it that only when this parali is burned, we have problems in Delhi? He's saying that he's passing off the buck, that it is not car pollution and this, that. Of course, there is something more to it than the eyes meet. It's become a business to start with. For political parties, you go on strike or you do this, that, and the other, and farmers start getting funding from these people sitting abroad and so on and so forth. And they know that last time what happened, farmers strike. Some of the finest cars, updated models, brand new tractor, they came with air-conditioned cars and what happened? To participate in a protest. That was a big drama going on. They think that this show can go on time and memorial. Second thing, health of an individual is far more important. We are being served the poison in the air. You mean to say there is no political angle behind this? I refuse to believe. There is a political angle behind it. There is always a solution if a state government or the other ones, the Punjab government or anybody else, allow me to complete it, please. If you're in a hurry, let me know. Okay. This protest has become a business now. Get into a protest and there will be funders available to you. Vehicle alone are not responsible, but vehicles are responsible. There are steps being taken. Hybrid cars are pumping in electricity. Electric-driven cars are coming in. But the point that which is hurting us is that you want to tell farmers you can have your hunky-dory situation all the time, burn what you like to, and nobody is going to check you. That's not acceptable. You are playing with lives of humans. We don't need Pakistan if we have these kind of farmers. Why can't we sensitize them? Why can't we tell them that don't be so gullible that somebody asks you to burn it, knowing very well that this is harmful to us, harmful to you. Last but not the least, Sikhs are not like this. Sikhs don't participate in harming people. There's some other community who's so-called Sikhs. So I strongly protest, saying that farmers are feeling very bad about it, and farmers are, why only hurt farmers and why only do this and why do that. Whole year we have no issue. Only when parali is burnt. All these kind of excuses that the gentleman prior to me is giving, that it's not only parali, it's other reasons also. Get your house sorted out. Get these reports sorted out. Many of these reports, I'm sure, are even funded and prepared and whatever. 20%, 30%, 40%. That kind of error, that margin of error you are giving in these, not acceptable.
Okay,
You're playing with lives of people.
Yeah, we'll have Mr. Chacha respond to you, but before that, we'll have Mr. Chacha respond to you what you have said. But before that, let me also rope in Mr. Sanjay Nath Singh, President and Secretary General of AIFA. Mr. Sanjay Nath, so welcome to the show.
Thank you, sir.
8 to 9 months, no pollution. The winter months in the capital city is a nightmare. The entire political discourse, the public discourse, the social conversation, everything becomes about pollution. But it's still very difficult to pinpoint whose fault is it anyway. Where do you stand on this?
Every time we have these discussions, and we have been having it for a couple of years, and we find that it is always the farmers who are being made to look like the devils of the entire situation, which is not the fact. You look at it, it's not that. You look at the facts. Between 2020 and 2023, in Punjab, the farm fires came down by almost 56%. It didn't happen just like that, because the farmers worked for it. Similarly, in Haryana, the farm fires came down during this period of 2020 to 2023 by almost 45%. And in this year, till now, about day before yesterday, the fires in 1683 or something like that, and 680 or 860 in Haryana. I'm not saying that parali is not a problem. It adds to the pollution of Delhi. The Delhi has a pollution of its own, and I have been saying it and talking about it ever since that we have been having these discussions.
So there seems to be a problem with your frame. We're not able to hear you properly, sir. Let me also get an Inder Shekhar Singh, agriculture policy expert and analyst, into this conversation. Inder, parali is a big problem. Are we, on a consensus when it comes to that, or do you also differ that parali is not a problem? Delhi has other inherent problems which lead to this kind of a pollution.
Actually, I have not finished my point.
So we can't hear you, sir. So we can't hear you properly. I think you're on the road, sir. There is a problem with your network. Apologies for that. Inder, go on.
Oh, okay.
Vineet, first of all, thank you for having me on your show. Now the issue is the facts. People, not just right, it has bad quality air, and when you go and breathe, whether it's in the month of January or February, and January more so when there is no parali burning, or December when there's no parali burning, you still find that the air quality is really very bad. So there's no stubble, but still the air is bad. So what are the causes of that? When you test it against all the winter months and not just the starting of November when the parali burning is happening, you get to know that Delhi also is a big
All right, there's a problem with your connection as well. Mr. Chacha, would you like to respond to what Mr. Sikka had said, that if parali is not a problem, then how come Delhi is livable for at least 8 to 9 months of an year? Mr. Chacha?
Okay, thank you. The previous panelist is speaking, so I wanted, because he's saying the same thing, and I did. It's not a this or that situation. What I am saying quite clearly, and I'll repeat it here, when you want to take action, and which has not been taken all these years, and we see the results, when you want to take action, you have to go by what are the main causes, what is the main evidence to prove those causes, and act in proportion of those causes. That's all I'm saying. Parali problem, I had said, Parali contributes about 25 to 30%, depending on, and of course, Mr. Singh was speaking earlier and how the parali burning instance over the last 3-4 years has showed a declining trend. I will not say it has stopped, but it showed a declining trend. But it is only one part of the problem. So the parali question goes back to the agrarian question, which Mr. Sikka wasn't speaking to, but I will speak to it. See, first of all, let's be clear that Punjab, Haryana, Western UP and areas around it, the northern belt, if we call it, was pushed into green revolution agriculture. Why? Into a 2-crop cycle, wheat and rice cycle. Why? Because we wanted to have that area with all the rivers get into what's called the augmenting the food, national food security basket in the 70s and 80s. These areas were growing a range of other things, mustard, oil seeds, you've had other things growing there, maize, for instance. Now that's changed into a 2-crop cycle, and it has its own contradictions. Those contradictions go to what the water tables are. Punjab and Haryana both got a curious act, if I may call it, governing when paddy needs to be sown. Only after April, and that too when notification is given. This was in 2009. So let's look at that in perspective. What were these areas growing? What were the local climate resilient crops they were growing? I think the transitions certainly are needed. It's not a fault of theirs that they got pushed into it. There were other national reasons. Now I think those can be much more distributed. We are not in 1970s and 80s, not looking at grain shortages, not looking at famines. We are not there. So things have changed. So I think there's a transition needed there. But having said so, I also want to be very clear. These are not some funded studies or some political agendas. There is ample amount of scientific evidence available through very, very esteemed national organizations, through government's own research, which tell us what is the contributing factors to Delhi's air pollution in these winter months. Let me not talk of the rest of the year. Winter months, I've already said, there's an added problem, and that is because of the inversion of temperature, because of the air speeds, that things don't escape. But what are those factors? Vehicles, 38 to 40%. This is the IIT Delhi study. This is a government of Delhi study. The question of industrial pollutions, about 28%, depending what kind of pollutants are going on. I was making a point that when you want to act dust pollution, concrete batching, what it contributes to what's called air pollution, the whole open air waste burning, these are factors, and these factors are important factors all year around. They get exacerbated in winters, like Parali does, on account of the airflow conditions, on account of the temperature conditions, on account of the fact that pollutants don't escape. All these need to be acted on even-handedly. That's the point I'm making. If industries are getting scot-free, why are they? Why only put the blame on farmers? This is not to say that farmers should go scot-free. I think this debate needs to be put in its rightful perspective in order to solve, not in order to keep debating year on year on year. And I think we will see tremendous progress if we have identified the factors, and if we can act in an even-handed, transparent, and strong manner on all those factors. I have given some instances, but needless to say, we have other longer-term transitions needed.
All right, Mr. Chacha, you've made your point. We have a paucity of time. I'm going to get quick responses from Mr. Bhattacharya and Mr. Sikka as well, and then we'll conclude. Mr. Bhattacharya, concluding thoughts.
Science is being treated as a new religion now, and I'll point out exactly why. There was a separate study by IIT Delhi, IIT Kanpur, and PRL Ahmedabad, which actually said that pollution because of organic particles are the key pollutants for the air pollution that is being caused. Subsequent study then says no, over a period of time, the air polluted the source of air pollution because of agricultural waste contributes to only 4 or 5% across 12 months. That's like saying if I take the nuclear bomb on Hiroshima Nagasaki, divide by 75 years, then it's like a Diwali pataka, so it's not much. So let's not bother about the Hiroshima Nagasaki bombing. When the parali burns in those 2-3 months, it's a gas chamber in Delhi. Let's not forget that. Are we trading food for clean air? That is not an acceptable